Lovely to meet you today again. And thank you so much for welcoming us to your home. And we're going to talk about your fascinating career, because you've had such an interesting life. You've been a corporate lawyer, you've travelled the world, you've been a property investor with a huge business. Then kind of rags to riches, finding yourself on your own with 3 children to look after. And then starting another business that's now very successful, winning loads of awards, 15 awards, going to Downing Street to win the Women's Award for the Year Enterprising Business. So really interesting to hear what triggered the transition from being a corporate lawyer into business.
Well, thank you very much for coming first. You know, when you say it like that, it sounds like it was all planned. And in fact, I'd like to point out that it was actually not planned, a lot of it. My move from corporate to entrepreneur was actually forced, because I had these 3 small children, one of whom was really, really ill, and I was traveling a lot, and then I ended up on my own with them, with no financial settlement. And my family were deeply unhappy with me because I'm Indian and you shouldn't get divorced. And I was just, I couldn't stay working as a lawyer because I wasn't home. You know, I was traveling all the time, and I was in Moscow and I was in Rwanda, and I thought, you know, I don't want to leave my children and have somebody else look after them who may not care as much as me. I found it very interesting because I'm not really a naturally maternal type in those terms. So it would never, if you had said to me, will you stay at home with the kids, I would have really shot myself. It's absolutely not would have been a decision that I would have chosen. But when it came down to it, I found like, and I've repeated this again and again in my life, my end result was that I wanted my children to be okay.
Yes.
And in order for my children to be okay, I had to make certain choices. And that was that I was going to stay at home. I was going to stay at home, and then I thought, how do I make money? Because I'm a lawyer, I know how to make money when I go work in a law firm. And I found my books actually a couple of months ago, and I had opened this book, and I had written, I think it was something like, was it November or something? And I had written £200, because that's how much I made in November. And then December, I'd made £1,000, and I could see the progression. And it was really, really scary. It was very, very frightening. And so it wasn't a conscious choice. There are people that do that, and I'm very proud of them. I didn't.
So, scary choice, and a lot of women face that, I think, starting out their own businesses, or have that conflict of wanting to be at home, look after your children well, not necessarily, but, you know, making sure they're fine.
Yes.
And how do you manage that? So, you've done it. You've transitioned into running this business.
Yes.
What was the key thing that really helped you in that time when you were thinking, oh my goodness, is this going to work or isn't it going to work? What really helped you?
I think, again, it's a necessity, being the mother of all invention. I had no choice but to make money, because there were certain things that I wasn't going to change. My children were always going to stay in the schools they were in, because I didn't want them to change. So I had to come up with the money to pay for the school, and I had to come up with the money to pay for my house and my money, you know. And I feel it sounds very prosaic when I say that, but in fact that's literally where women are more prosaic. We are very much more down to earth, and this is how my life was. I needed to make certain things, so I got really good at making money. I can sell anything, anywhere, anytime, honestly. If there was a sales competition, I would win it hands down all the time, because I taught myself to do that. I can market anything, anywhere, because I didn't know what marketing meant, and I went and worked it out. I remember sitting next to somebody and going, they said, oh, I'm in marketing, and I'm like, what's that? I had no idea. But I learnt to market, and I learnt to do all those things because I just had to make money. So I was lucky enough that I had no alternative, and so I got good at it.
So marketing is one thing, and you can market, but you've got to back the marketing up with sale, haven't you?
You do.
You've developed a great product.
I have, yes, and that really helps. Yeah. Our product is phenomenal, and I think if you try and sell a substandard product, you are always going to suffer. We're not at all lucky about this. We come from a place of pure authenticity, and our job, I think, is to create the absolutely best product we can, for the best price that we can, so that we're adding value. Not that it's cheap, but it's value. And so then deliver that product. And we have always, as a business, come from that. And we will never compromise that, and then everything else is all right.
So when you go to market, you know you've got a great product to sell, and
100%.
And a great team around you.
Yes. Yeah, they're fantastic.
So starting a business is one thing.
Yes.
Transitioning to another level, growing to another level, is a very different thing.
Yes.
How have you done that?
Oh, sometimes well and sometimes badly, because that's how you do it. The one thing that I learnt very, very quickly was that it is always about you as an entrepreneur. You will always grow as much as you're willing to grow as a person. So whenever I used to go, well, we're not growing because, or we're not doing this because, and then I had to give that all up, and we weren't growing because of me most of the time. And so I had to kind of get out of my own way. So either I had to learn how to delegate, or I had to learn how to train people to sell, or I had to learn how to be willing to hit my upper limit, or I had to learn not to be shy with some things, because it was very intimidating to do some things that I just didn't want to do, like ask people for business or money or this, and I just had to get over it. So when you sell something on your own, I think you have a business. When you build a team to help you to deliver that service and product, I think that becomes a company.
Yes. Yeah. So it's in growing the company, having that behind you. And I'm hearing that you're saying, well, I had to overcome myself.
Yes.
But that isn't so easy. How did you do that?
Oh, it's really not easy at all, because there's so many times I sit there thinking, God, I'm sure I was brought up to marry money or something. Can I just go hide in a corner and pull the duvet over my head? I just would like to point out, I regularly think like that. I'm like, there must be a way I'm going to hide, paint my nails, not do this. I've learned that when you are prepared to see what is there instead of what you would like to be there, again, that's the fastest way to move through anything.
Okay.
That is the skill that I'm learning to develop the fastest. Now, I've used so many different ways to do that. I know that when I eat well and I sleep well, physically, my brain works 100 times better. I know that, so I'm really careful about my physicality. I'm really careful about what I eat. Of course, I drink and party because those things are really important for me.
Yes.
But I have vitamin drips all the time. I mean, I'm the biggest user of my product, bar none. So I'm 100% believer in keeping my body strong. When my body's strong, my mind works better. When my mind works better, I don't feel so weak.
Yes.
So when I don't feel like a victim, I'm actually more effective and more efficient.
So it's really important to look after yourself.
It's absolutely primary. And also because I have been a single parent for so very long, it's also that I wouldn't manage my home life as well as my work life if I didn't have strength and balance across all of it. So I will try, I really do, I'm very, very careful about the fact that I work out, I get body work done, I've tried hypnotherapy, I have tried everything, and I continue to try, because some things work and some things don't, and I don't know what will work for me and what will work for you. And then the minute I find something that works, I feed it into my client base.
Great. So thinking about growing your business in another way, there's lots of research that talks about banks produce research, various other research bodies that produce this, and it comes down to similar things. So people say there's poor access to finance, poor attitudes for women, lack of confidence, lack of access to market. What have you found?
I think that it's been very interesting. Some of the research shows very clearly that thing where if you take a business plan and put a woman's name on it, and take the same business plan and put a man's name on it, the man's business plan gets more funding, they're perceived as better. So women need a great deal more natural authority to get to the same place that a man gets to, firstly, a huge amount more. Secondly, inherently, we ask for less money. Guilty as well.
So if you go for loans or whatever,
when we go for loans, we are more self-effacing, and when we doubt ourselves more. When we go for fundraising, we always think we need less money than we actually need. We are less willing to ask for things because we're more afraid of a no. Actually, we're just more afraid of a no. Now, I don't know if that's a weakness necessarily. I mean, I think women, because we're brought up as women, and because we're brought up to be more nurturing and to do different kinds of things, it's just part of our upkeep. But those are skills that you can be taught.
Yes.
And I think we need to learn those skills better. So, for example, what I did was, I'm a lawyer, so I can't add up. So I knew that finances was really, really difficult for me. So I went and put myself through an executive MBA at Cranfield to learn it. So that was the first step. Then I was like, okay, now I get this. What am I supposed to do with it? Then I went and I learned something else. But what I did do was I got an advisory board together. And my advisory board are people from BlackRock and Terra Firma and so, and I mean they terrify me on a regular basis, but they are all really good at numbers. So whenever I come up going, oh, I don't know, they pull me up within seconds, and they're forcing me to get to a place. But I chose them. I chose them to come there because this was my weakness, and I need that to get better. And I thought, how do I make this better? By being around people who are just spectacular at it, and it's, you know, like water for them, and eating and drinking. So.
And I think that's anybody starting in a business or growing a business needs to do that. Bring in the people who will challenge them and will
horrible.
back them up, and will address the weaknesses. So, you know, yes. And very important to get the right training, the stuff that's really going to help you and know yourself. Yeah. I know that you're also interested in women's attitude to life and to power.
Yes.
Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
It's very, yes, I find it interesting because a lot of my, as a health coach as well, I have a lot of women who are from the city and from these amazing places that come in as clients as well. But I find that one of the things, and women entrepreneurs, because you have the opportunity to see it the most as entrepreneurs, and also women that come in to me as clients of our business, we tend to be uncomfortable with power. And we tend to be uncomfortable with authority, because that's where that phrase used to come from, where if you put a woman in charge, she automatically becomes a bitch. You know, it's not that she is, but it's because we're uncomfortable operating from a position of power and authority and feeling okay in there. So what we do is we tend to overcompensate or become a bit shrill or a bit, you know, it's famously Margaret Thatcher had to have elocution classes to lower her voice. You know, and I think that if we were better trained to step into our power and understand how to feel powerful without using testosterone to be powerful. So men naturally gravitate towards power because testosterone's a hormone that provides, you know, a strength and a focus, whereas estrogen provides a more diffused approach. So you want to be able to step into a place where you're authoritarian and step out of it so that you can rest as a woman more comfortably. It makes this whole phenomenon of being, for example, female breadwinners, which is a rapidly growing segment of our society, where we have no choice. Right? I never chose to become my family's breadwinner, but this is where I am. Whereas my mother would never have been in that position. But we are getting sick quicker because we use steroids, cortisol, because we're coming from a position of almost fear and panic and stress to operate within power. And I think that understanding that the power comes from within us and being more comfortable with being powerful makes us healthier at what we do.
Being in your own skin.
Yes, but sometimes your own skin is kind and loving and charming and gentle because we are women. And sometimes actually your own skin has to be authoritarian. So now I'm still loving, but I'm in charge. Without being in your face about it.
Or assertive.
Yes. And I think we have to find a different space for that in our lives and in how we operate now as women.
Take on board that is part of being and growing your company, growing your business.
100%. We now have a lot of management type classes within the business where, like yesterday, I sat with my male manager, in fact, and I had everybody there because I was like, let's talk about how you're managing and, you know, let me help you to understand your power. And where you manage from a position of power, you manage better. And he was working at Tesco before, so he said, I've never had this problem. I was like, yes, but before you were operating with the mantle of Tesco, and here you're in a small business, so it doesn't, you know, how do you operate and get authority within your position as a manager, and your position as a CEO, and your position as an MD, and still retain a sense of who you are? Personally, I find that very interesting because it affects your health.
Yes, it does. What would you like to see from governments differently, and banks and all the institutions or other things to help women particularly, but anyone starting and growing a business? I don't think it's just a female thing. But what would you like to see different?
I think that you always say, could there be more education? And in a way, really, I think that when you set up a business and when you want to grow a business, it is such a skills-based activity. It isn't, you know, it's a skills-based activity. And if you can understand that those skills-based activities have slightly different learnings for women and for men. Like for women, I would love there to be a government-backed course which says, here's how to go and raise money. Here's what you're going to be bad at, here's what you're not going to like, and here's how you go out and raise money. Public speaking, for example. So I've grown my brand an enormous amount by getting on stage, and it terrified me. You know that thing when you get up on stage and all you can hear is the heartbeat, and you can't hear anything. And I was just like, I'm going to nail this. So I stood up everywhere I could, until now I can do it honestly without really thinking about it, and I don't even need my little speech. I can just go and speak wherever I am. But you know, that's a skill that people need to learn and understand, and that's also different for men and women. And I do think that those are different for men and women. And when you go and raise money from banks, and say you don't own a house but you want to set up a business, you know, and so we have a lot of people that consciously don't buy houses these days because actually they would rather rent because it gives them flexibility. Now, how do you get that loan? How do you set up the business? How do you move forward? How do you do all of that? Those are skills that I think there's a huge gap to learn and understand those skills. And I get emails in going, if only, you know, spend £10,000 on this course and the government will pay for 5,000. I'm like, I'm thrilled to hear it. Could you give me the other 5,000 too? You know,
like that.
What is the point of that? That does not help me in any way.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's ticking a thing somewhere. You know, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So teach me the things I need to know, because as an entrepreneur, I give back to the economy on so many levels.
Yes.
I am not remotely a drain on the economy. So why not make more of me and help me to get better at what I'm doing? So I'm giving back more.
You're such an inspiration. You know, you have such vitality and energy there and strength, and clearly you've been willing to learn and accept, and as you've gone along, and as a consequence, you've grown a successful business. Are there any final kind of tips you'd give to women starting out now?
Yes, I really think that the biggest. Firstly, you never wake up feeling inspirational. I just wake up thinking, gosh, it's fantastic I didn't screw up today. You know, I tend to think that that's a huge bonus on every level. But one of the things that I think is that we don't aim high enough. We really don't. And not only do I want people to, women and people, but women, we have the lowest epidemic of self-esteem I've ever seen in the women of today. And I think that this is a serious issue. I think we really, really, really need to aim much, much higher. So I'm like, think of a number, multiply it by 100, then triple it, and then let's aim for that number. I'm very clear about the fact that I want to be a billionaire. I do want to be a billionaire because I've tried poverty and it sucks. So why not aim for being a billionaire? If I fail and end up 100 millionaire, cool, I can live with that. But if I don't aim for that, I'm not going to try and get there. So I think that we need to aim, and I don't say that with any form of ego because I'm not special in any way. I just work really hard at what I do. So we need to all aim much, much higher. So whatever you're willing to aim for, literally tear it up and aim so much more, because research shows that what you think you can do in 1 year, you can't quite do. But what you think you can do in 3 years, you can so much more than do that. So aim much, much higher. And there are so many people that will hold that space for you.
Thank you so much. Great inspiration, great tips today, and really good insight. So thank you so much for giving us your time.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you.